G'day guys, Rob Herbert here from R&M Blades. Question I get asked quite a lot is why and how I got into custom knife making. About 7 or 8 years ago I was hunting quite a lot with some factory knives that just weren't performing, they weren't doing what they were meant to. And I've been in the army for a number of years prior to that, and a good mate of mine that was in the army with me was also a custom knife maker who's doing it on the side, bit of a hobby like I do now. I looked him up, gave him a call, and he said, well, why don't you come down, catch up, talk about old times, and have a look at what goes into a knife. So that was all the way back when, and I haven't looked backwards. To start off a knife, I guess you need to have a pattern, and the patterns have been developed over those R&D years of people saying it needs more belly in it, needs less, point at the front, a bit more drop point, all that sort of stuff. So I came up with some basic patterns. So you see them on the Facebook page, your large hunter, your small hunter, your semi-skinner, and small game knife. They're my basic patterns that work. And I make knives as what R&M Blades made to use. They're made to do a purpose, and that's to get out there and hunt with them and dress game and get into that. So you start off with a pattern, you trace it out on your steel, you choose the steel yourself as a customer, and if you want a high carbon steel, you want one of those high tech steels, your S30V, ATS 34, RWL 34, all those sort of tech names. You talk to me about what you hunt and where you hunt, and I can actually give you some guidance around that stuff. And so it gets traced out onto a piece of steel, and then I'll go over and I'll cut out the basic shape. You can make knives with whatever tools you have in the shed. I don't discourage anyone that's starting out to try and make a knife with some files, sandpaper, that sort of stuff, whatever you've got and whatever your budget can afford. But to be honest with you, my career really didn't kick off until I purchased a Wilmot Tag 101. It's the absolute workhorse of the shop. It's quite to stand in front of. I can get speed control. I get those really infinite things happening on the grinder that I just couldn't before. I've made a whole lot of my own grinders, and I really do encourage you to take that path to learn, I guess, about how to use a badly built machine. So when you do get a good machine, you're so much better. You learn from those mistakes, and you learn hand and eye control and how to get your end product looking better. I do this really, and it might come across a bit funny, but I do this for love, not money. My passion for building the knife is getting the feedback from you guys after you've got it. And telling me that this is the best knife you've ever owned, when you open it up before you go use it. And seeing the pictures of how easy it was for you to harvest your animal with that knife, and that appreciation to me is huge. That's what drives me. I'm making a very, very small profit margin. Okay, so it comes down to designing the knife for you once you've ordered it, and that can take quite a bit of time as well. So there's the time out in the shop building what you want. Prior to that is making sure that what you want and the product you get, because you might be in New Zealand or Canada or Northern Territory, so we don't get to have that one-on-one when you can come to the shop and get the knife fitted up and go, well, I need that a little bit bigger or smaller here. I'm trying to do that by long distance education and making sure that what you're thinking is what I'm making. So that process itself takes quite a lot of time. Okay. The knife can take up to, 3 days, 40 hours in my hand of continual use. It's quite a labour intensive thing, and you build a real connection with every tool that you make. It might be a knife that I made 2 years ago, but I can actually remember if you showed me that knife the things that troubled me with that knife and the things that pleased me with that knife. Every build has, you know, those intricate qualities in it. You know, it's one of those things that, you know, people ask how long is it going to take. It's not as easy as just putting it into a machine and pushing a button. Everything's done by hand. Once that process is all done, even down to selecting your piece of antler, you know, I look at a whole bunch of different antlers, and I've got some on the wall in here that I use to cut up, and that antler mightn't suit you. You know, it might suit the knife. It's one of those things. It's cut up, it's shaped, and it's made, and you know, every knife goes through the hand, so I can feel how it is and how does it hold and grip and all those sort of things that really makes the difference between an off-the-shelf knife and a custom knife. Once the knife's complete, it then needs to go into a sheath. The sheaths that I make, I try and make them so that they're going to last as long as the knife, if not longer. So I'm using Australian tanned leather. It's 4mm leather. Every knife fits that sheath. Two knives don't go into the same sheath. That's custom. It's made to fit that individual knife. The leather's cut out by hand. The knife's laid in there. All the welts are made to fit the actual knife. And that can take a bit of time, because by the time you wrap the knife over in there and fit it up, it's got to have different adjustments. And those that have got my shoes will see that there's maybe 3 or 4 layers to be able to fit that knife in perfectly, and the knife fits in, it's not going to fall out, protects the knife. That takes, you know, it takes quite a bit of time sorting that stuff out. You know, some of you guys, you like my Samba stamp that I've got. I make my own stamps to put in the sheath. I've got, you know, your Samba stamps, your wolf prints, which is your wild dog stuff, you know, whatever it is that you want, the individual tooling. So that can take, you know, a good day to get a sheath together at least. You know, it just adds to the process. Once that's all done, then the knife's glued up. So I'll use a contact adhesive to make sure that it gives it some waterproofing as well, and a bit of a membrane through that stuff. Then the stitch pattern's put in, and then that's all done by hand. It's all hand dotted. Get my 2 needles together, and I use what's called a saddle stitch. It's a time-old stitch that a lot of guys that play around with leather goods know about, and every single stitch is put in by hand. Once that's done, then we go through the how we dye the sheaths and get those colours in that you guys want out there. Another big question I get is where I get all my equipment from sandpaper to grinding belts to all of those consumables that you use. I get all my stuff through Kyron at Gamaco in Sydney. Fantastic shop, online, catalogues, helpful, knows exactly what you require. He's a knife maker himself, and some of his staff know exactly what you're after. The one thing that I will strongly advise, guys, is you can buy cheap carbon steel that's going to produce you a really good knife. The heat treatment, you know, is going to come out well. better than spending hours beating away on some old Land Cruiser Spring that you found in the backyard somewhere and you don't even know what it's made out of. So check out what's available Australia wide. I really try and pump to buy Australian if you can, support the Australian companies, and you'll be right.